Hare Krishna. I am Radhika Piyari and this is the continuation of the Mahabharat series retold by Krishna Dharma Prabhu. Part 2, Chapter 27, Bhima fights Duryodhana. The Pandavas returned to their camp after their unsuccessful search for Duryodhana. After entering Yudhishthira's tent, they dispatched soldiers to search every part of the battlefield. As they sat awaiting news, guards ushered the hunters in. Falling at Yudhishthira's feet, the hunters told him everything they had seen and heard. Yudhishthira rose with a smile. He immediately gave the hunters much wealth. After dismissing them, he went with his brothers to the lake, which was called Dvaipayana. All the Pandava warriors went with them, roaring out, "We have found Duryodhana. Let us finish him once and for all." The three men mounted their horses and rode into the forest just before the Pandavas reached the lake. They saw that the lake's waters were perfectly still, charmed by Duryodhana's mystical powers. Seeing that unusual sight, they realized Duryodhana was hiding like a coward within the lake. Yudhishthira said to Krishna, "Just see how this deceitful man has used his powers of deception to avoid defeat. But he will not escape me now. Even if Indra himself comes to his side, he will die today." Krishna agreed. "With your own mystic powers, O king, destroy Duryodhana's illusion. One conversant with illusion should be destroyed by illusion. This is truth. So many Daityas and Danavas, all masters of mystic power, have been killed by the gods by means of illusion. Therefore, act swiftly so that this wicked man meets his just end." Yudhishthira called out to Duryodhana, "Why, O best of men, have you charmed this lake and hidden beneath its waters? How is that you now desire to save your own life, having brought about the destruction of your family and friends, and indeed millions of Kshatriyas? Arise and fight. Where is your honor? You have been described as a hero in all assemblies, but I think those descriptions have been false. You are nothing but a coward. Just see how you now hide from us to protect your life. O wicked foe, come out and face the consequences of all your evil acts. Do not cover here like a eunuch. Heroes never fly from battle. Rather, they prefer death to dishonor. Do not destroy your honor. Stand for battle. Either govern this earth after gaining victory, or sleep on the naked earth killed by us." Standing at the edge of the lake with his brothers and Krishna, with all the other Pandava warriors standing behind him, Yudhishthira waited for Duryodhana's reply. He looked around at his surroundings. The large lake gave respite from the heat and dust of the battlefield. Situated in a cool glade, it was shaded by tall trees with many colored blossoms hanging down to its surface. Varieties of water fowl sat in the trees, mystified by the lake's sudden transformation. A gentle breeze fanned the leaves, filling the air with a soothing rustle that was punctuated by the melodic cries of birds. The Pandavas felt refreshed simply by seeing the picturesque region, which was the resort of numerous yogis and ascetics. After a wait of some moments, Duryodhana called out, "O king, it is no wonder that fear seizes all living beings. But I have not entered this lake out of fear. Bereft of my army and standing alone in the fight, I am tired. Therefore, I sought refuge in this lake to rest. O son of Kunti, you should also rest. In due course, I will surely fight with you all." Yudhishthira laughed. "O Duryodhan, we have rested sufficiently. The time has arrived for our final battle. Come out and conclude the war either by slaying us or by dying a hero's death." Duryodhana, still saddened by the deaths of Karna, Shakuni, and all his brothers, spoke with anguish in his voice. "O scion of Kuru's race, I no longer desire to rule this world. Deprived as I am of my kinsmen and friends, all those for whose sake I desired sovereignty now lie dead. I give you this empty earth. Although I wish to defeat you and humble your pride, even my desire for battle is gone when I think of Drona and Karna and our grandsire Bhishma. I think I will enter the forest clad in deerskin and bent on a life of asceticism." Go, O king, and rule the earth destitute of monarchs, warriors, and wealth. I will remain here. Duryodhana's words held a note of sarcasm that was not lost on Yudhishthira. Becoming impatient, Yudhishthira replied, Do not rave so, O Duryodhana. I feel no pity for you. It was by your greed that everyone has died. I will not accept this earth as a gift, for that is not my duty as a Kshatriya. Now, are you in a position to make such a gift? You have already lost everything. Yudhishthira smiled at his brothers and he continued, Why, O hero, did you not make the offer when Krishna requested you to? How is it that you, who once denied me even as much land as could be pierced by a needle, now wish to give me the earth? It is not yours to give, nor was it ever yours. Come out and win the world, or go to the celestial regions after we kill you. For all your sins against us and against the chaste Draupadi, you deserve to die at our hands. I shall not spare you. The other Pandavas then shouted at Duryodhana to come out of the lake. Angry, they rebuked him again and again. All the other warriors roared out their battle cries and waved their weapons. Hearing the tumult of and reflecting on Yudhishthira's words, Duryodhana became enraged. He decided to fight but was apprehensive. O Pandavas, you have friends, chariots, and animals. I am alone and without a chariot. How can I stand against all of you? I do not feel this to be fair or in keeping with Kshatriya codes. Allow me to fight with you one at a time, and I will come out. I am not afraid of any of you. Like the rising sun destroying starlight, I will rise up and destroy you all. Today I will release myself from the debt I owe to all my slain warriors. The Pandavas cheered when they heard his valorous words. Yudhishthira replied, By good fortune you have remembered your duty, O mighty armed one. By good fortune have you inclined your mind towards battle. Choose any one of us and any weapon. I grant you that if you gain victory with any of us, you may become king. Otherwise, killed by us, go to heaven. Duryodhana smiled within the lake. He fingered the mace by his side and said, Brave as you are, O mighty ones, if you allow me the option of choosing my weapon and then I select the mace I have in my hands, let any one of you who feels he is a match for me stand against me in battle. I will fight alone and on foot, armed only with a mace. Without doubt, I will slay you all one at a time. Not even Indra can face me when I stand armed with my mace. We will see. Come out and be a man. Death awaits you. Fight in any way you like, you will not escape. Unable to tolerate Yudhishthira's goading, Duryodhana rose up from the waters. The Pandavas saw the surface ripple as he came up from the bottom. Emerging from the waters with his mace on his shoulders, he appeared like a mountain crest rising out of the ocean. The Pandavas and their followers embraced one another and shouted joyously to see Duryodhana emerge. Now the war could be concluded. The warriors waved their weapons and blew their conches. Duryodhana glowered at his enemies, insulted by their exclamations of happiness. He bit his lips and breathed heavily. Standing on the shore of the lake with water running from his body, he looked around and thundered, You will have to bear the consequences of all these insults. I will kill you all and send you to Yamraja's abode. As he spoke, he brought his mace down from his shoulder and struck the earth, making the ground tremble. He stared angrily at Yudhishthira and said, Here I am, O descendant of Kuru. Abide by your word and let me fight any one of you. I have only my mace. Stand forward, my opponent, to fight on equal terms. You should referee our contest because you are well qualified to judge what is right and what is wrong. Duryodhana glanced at Bhima, who stared back at him with unbridled hatred. Both men knew the final contest would be between them. Bhima stood with his mace by his side, thinking of his vow to kill the Kaurava. He longed to leap forward at once, bringing him death, dealing mace down upon Duryodhana's head with all his power. But he checked himself, awaiting Yudhishthira's order. Yudhishthira smiled wryly upon hearing Duryodhana's request, that he judged the fight. The intelligent Pandava knew what he meant. Bhima's promise had been that he would smash his thighs, and in mace fighting, blows beneath the belt were forbidden. Well, the Kaurava had been given ample warning. Bhima had made his intentions clear. He wanted to punish Duryodhana for his long past crime against Draupadi. He would smash the thigh the prince had shamelessly exposed before her in the assembly hall. There would be no sin in meting out such a punishment. Yudhishthira, moved to anger by his recollection of the dice game, replied it sternly. How is it, O Duryodhana, that you did not consider right or wrong when you and your followers killed Abhimanyu? Without doubt, the duties of a Kshatriyas are harsh and merciless. Otherwise, how could you have slaughtered that child in such an unfair way? Why do you now ask that we fight you one by one? In difficulties, men are ever prone to forget virtue, caring nothing for the consequences of their deeds. However, O hero, I will give you a fair chance. Select any one of us as your opponent. If you can defeat any one of us, then you will be king. Otherwise, proceed to heaven. Krishna looked questioningly at Yudhishthira. What had come over him? Duryodhana was famous throughout the world for his skill with a mace. Balram himself, the unrivaled master of the mace, had said that Duryodhana was his best student. Perhaps Bhima could defeat him, but it would be a close contest. And if Duryodhana selected another opponent, then who knew what the outcome would be? It seemed that Yudhishthira had once again staked everything on a single throw. Duryodhana laughed and stepped forward. The Pandava soldiers fetched him a suit of armor, which he quickly donned. Resplendent, he said, O Yudhishthira, I will fight with any one of you brothers. What difference does it make? Who can match my strength? I will kill you one after another. There are none among you who can face me in a fair fight. It is not right for me to vaunt my own prowess, but I speak the truth. Within an hour you will see my words proven true. Let he among you who will fight me take up his mace. Duryodhana's pride prevented him from selecting an easy opponent. He felt sure he would not be defeated, no matter who fought with him. He was not even afraid of Bhima, and his intense hatred for that particular Pandava made him hope Bhima would be selected to fight. It was likely. Who else could the Pandavas choose? Anticipating this day even while still in Hastinapura, Duryodhana had spent countless hours practicing beating an iron image of Bhima. Now he could exercise his skills against Bhima himself. As Duryodhana spoke, Krishna went over to Yudhishthira and said quietly, O king, you have made a rash promise. What will happen if Duryodhana decides to fight with you, Arjuna or the twins? Only Bhima can face him with the mace. But even then, the outcome is not certain. Although Bhima's strength is greater, Duryodhana's skills are better, and skill usually wins over strength. I think you have made a grave mistake. Who but you would relinquish a kingdom after winning such a great war and having only a single enemy left? It seems, O king, that Kunti's sons are not meant to enjoy sovereignty. Bhima, standing by Yudhishthira's side, heard Krishna's words and said, O Madhava, do not grieve. I will end this war. Yudhishthira's victory is certain because the wretched Duryodhana stands before me for battle. Allow me to fight with him. My mace is more powerful than his, and my skills are not lagging. What to speak of Duryodhana, armed with my mace, I could fight with the celestials headed by Indra. Krishna applauded Bhima and said, Depending on you, O mighty armed one, surely Yudhishthira will regain his prosperity. You have slain all of Duryodhana's brothers and uncountable numbers of his troops. Go forward and slay this wretch himself. Fulfill your promise, but fight with care. He is a formidable opponent with his mace. Bhima laughed in derision and stepped towards Duryodhana with his mace resting on his shoulder. His brothers cheered him and he thundered, I dare to fight with this most arrogant and sinful one. He will not be able to defeat me. Today I will vomit forth the anger which has rankled in my bosom for many years. Today, dear brother, I will pluck out the dart which has long stuck in your heart. O virtuous one, today I will recover your garland of glory. Today Duryodhana will renounce his life, prosperity and kingdom. Today, hearing of his son's death, Dhritarashtra will remember all his sins against us. Bhima roared and whirled his mace, bringing it down with such force that the earth shook. Duryodhana could not brook the challenge and he stepped towards Bhima, raising his fist. He glared at Bhima, who returned his venomous look. They appeared like a lion and a king of elephants facing one another in the forest. Staring into Duryodhana's smoldering eyes, Bhima went on. Do you recall how you insulted Draupadi, O sinful man, and how you deceived the pious king Yudhishthira? Receive now the consequences of those acts and of the other wrongs you inflicted upon us. It is by your fault that Bhishma now lies prostrate on the field, that Drona has been killed, and that so many other valiant heroes are slain. All your brothers are dead, including the despicable one who seized Draupadi's sanctified hair. Now you will follow them. Today your pride will be crushed along with your hope of sovereignty. Prepare to pay for your misdeeds. Duryodhana sneered. What is the use of your bold words? I will quell your desire for battle. Why do you disregard me? See my mace, like the summit of Mount Himavat. Not even Purandara, the Lord of the Heavens, could defeat me in a fair fight. Who cares for all my so-called misdeeds? What can you or anyone else do about them? By my might, you have already had to suffer so much, even becoming a cook in Virata's house, while Arjuna became a eunuch. I have killed most of your lives, and you will be the next to die. Bhima was ready. He seemed to be on fire as he glared at Duryodhana. The Kaurava, remembering Bhima's vow, said, Do not gain victory by unfair means, O Vrikadora, for that will deprive you of your reputation. Fight honestly with all your strength. Then, defeated by me, you will gain everlasting fame. Krishna suggested that the fight to death takes place near Lake Samanta Panchaka, a sacred place created by Parashurama. The warriors agreed and made their ways to the site. As they moved across the battlefield, Balram arrived, just returned from his pilgrimage to the holy places. He was greeted with affection by Yudhishthira and his brothers. Krishna bowed before him and touched his feet, saying, Witness the skill of your two disciples, O Rama. Just now they are proceeding to Samanta Panchaka for battle. The white-complexioned Balram looked like the full moon risen on the battlefield. Clad in blue silks and adorned with gold ornaments, a garland of red lotuses on his chest, he shone as he embraced both Bhima and Duryodhana, who each offered him their obeisances. After inquiring about the welfare of all the kings and Kshatriyas and hearing how almost all of them had been slain, Balram said, I have already received news of the war from Narada, who told me that the fight between these two heroes was about to take place. Thus I have come. Some weeks ago I left for my tour, deciding to side with neither party. I have not changed my decision. I will watch the fight with a neutral heart. Balram joined the warriors as they went on foot the short distance to Samanta Panchaka. Bhima and Duryodhana, both breathing heavily, strode angrily next to each other, staring ahead with their maces resting on their shoulders. Reaching Samanta Panchaka, where Parshuram had excavated a lake and filled it with the blood of slain warriors, they formed a circle around a large expanse of flat, sandy ground. Bhima and Duryodhana stood facing each other in the center. They challenged one another in harsh tones and roared in anger. Both were joyful at the prospect of the fight, each expecting a quick victory. They looked like an eastern and western cloud coming together in the heavens and thundering terribly. They hurled insults at each other, circling with maces held at the ready. As the fight was about to commence, awful omens were seen. Fierce winds blew up, and a shower of dust fell from the sky. Claps of thunder resounded in the cloudless sky. Meteors fell, and a dark circle surrounded the sun. Jackals howled, and the vultures and the crows cried. Loud voices seemed to boom out, suddenly rising and falling in a fearful cacophony. Disregarding the omens, the two enraged fighters rushed at one another with their maces raised high. They met like two furious bulls fighting with their horns. The two maces collided with a deafening crash, sending up a shower of sparks. Cheered by the watching warriors, they exhibited graceful maneuvers, whirling their weapons and spinning around as they fought. The gods, Gandharvas, and rishis came to witness the battle. The celestial beings marveled at the speed and skill of the two fighters as they sought out each other's weaknesses. For some time, neither could penetrate the other's defenses, and their maces clashed again and again, sounding like thunderclaps. As the fight wore on, however, they began to strike each other great blows on the arms and shoulders. Hit hard by his opponent, each wound reeled back, then quickly recovered, returning swift blows to his unguarded foe. Both knew every move and displayed the full range of their skills, though to the onlookers' wonder. Everyone who watched the fight gasped and cheered as the two warriors fought. Bhima's flying mace resembled Yamraja's rod of death, raised for the destruction of all creatures. It fell upon Duryodhana with a sound like the rushing wind. The Kaurava moved about with astonishing dexterity, evading Bhima's strokes and countering with terrific speed. His own mace moved with such velocity that it created flames of fire in the air. By his superior skill, Duryodhana began to prevail over Bhima, repeatedly smashing him with forceful blows. Although struck again and again, Bhima stood his ground and appeared unshaken. Brought to the pitch of wrath, he tried to strike back at his opponent with his iron mace, swinging it around with such speed that it could hardly be seen. But Duryodhana expertly baffled Bhima by leaping high and dodging those blows. He spun around in the air and turned in some somersaults as he eluded Bhima's wheeling mace. Laughing as he dropped back to the earth, he brought his own mace down on Bhima's head with great force. Although struck with such violence, Bhima did not move, making all the spectators cry out in amazement. Duryodhana seemed to dance on the field, his mace continuously circling around him and protecting him on every side. Bhima found all his attacks thwarted and immediately answered by heavy counter blows from Duryodhana. Balram applauded his skill, but the Pandavas and their followers felt dispirited. They watched in apprehension as Bhima took a beating from the Kaurava prince. Bhima was infuriated by Duryodhana's evasive tactics. After being struck again by the Kaurava's mace, he took several steps backwards and then suddenly spun round, whirling his mace at waist height. Letting go of the mace, he swung it by its long sling and it rushed through the air with a roaring sound. Duryodhana was caught on his side and he dropped to his knees in pain. A great cheer went up from the Pandavas, but Duryodhana, unable to tolerate the shouting and empowered by his mother's glance, immediately got to his feet, shaking off his pain. Screaming in fury, he ran at Bhima and, with a sudden maneuver, struck the Pandava on the forehead. Bhima stood unmoved. Blood flowed from his forehead like temporal fluid trickling from the head of an elephant. Duryodhana was stunned to see his opponent still standing. He took a step backward and Bhima, seizing his opportunity, struck him powerfully on the shoulder. Duryodhana fell to the earth like an uprooted oak tree. He lay there for a moment in a swoon as the Pandavas cheered and waved their weapons. Bhima waited for his dazed foe to regain his senses. He was amazed that his blow, which could have smashed down a mountain peak, had not killed him outright. Within a minute, Duryodhana leapt to his feet. He was uninjured. His eyes gloated as he saw Bhima's astonishment. The queen's ascetic power was something indeed. Duryodhana laughed loudly, then suddenly darted forward. Dodging Bhima's whirling mace, the Kaurava spun around in a complete circle and struck him full on the chest. Bhima's armor burst open and he flew backwards, falling to the earth with a thud. Out! The celestial shouted and rained fragrant flowers on the fighters. Fear possessed the Pandavas' hearts as they saw Bhima lying on the ground, but in a few moments he sprang to his feet. Wiping the blood from his face, he gazed at Duryodhana with bloodshot eyes. The two men paced, regarding each other with cautious respect and looking for an opportunity to strike. As they circled, Arjuna said quietly to Krishna, "Who do you think is superior in this contest, O Janardana? What is their respective merit?" Arjuna himself, an accomplished mace fighter, felt anxious for Bhima. He had also noticed Duryodhana's apparent invulnerability and could not see how Bhima would overpower him. It seemed as if the Kaurava had the upper hand, but Krishna, who had saved Arjuna from many such situations, would surely know what to do. Krishna replied with a slight smile. These two have received equal training. Bhima is stronger, but Duryodhana's skill is greater, and he has practiced much more. He has also been blessed by his mother's ascetic power, making the contest uneven. Bhima will not win a fair fight, but if he resorts to unfair tactics, he will be victorious. Deceit in battle is acceptable against a deceitful foe. Even Indra used deceit to overcome the mighty Asura, Virochana, and Vrita. Watching as the two combatants rushed again at one another, Krishna reminded Arjuna of Bhima's promise to break Duryodhana's thigh, a promise which was later reinforced by Maitreya's curse. He made it clear that this was the only way Bhima could gain victory. The Pandavas have again been placed in a perilous position due to Yudhishthira's fault. Krishna continued, the learned Shukra has stated that the remnant of a defeated army rallied and returned to the fight are always to be feared, being desperate and fixed in their determination. Duryodhana had lost everything and was ready to enter the forest. Yudhishthira should not have challenged him. Now Bhima must surely use unfair means to end this fight, otherwise the kingdom will again be lost, O hero. Krishna knew that Bhima was endeavoring to defeat Duryodhana by fair means before fulfilling his vow of breaking the prince's thigh. Arjuna understood his meaning and, catching Bhima's eye, he slapped his thigh. Bhima nodded slightly in understanding. This must be a message from Krishna. He had not wanted to strike Duryodhana below the belt until he was overpowered, but perhaps there was no alternative. The Kaurava was fighting with demonic fury, exhibiting every skill and showing no signs of fatigue. Nor did it seem possible to make any impression on him, no matter how hard he was struck. Krishna's advice was his only chance. Bhima moved about rapidly in front of Duryodhana, displaying his maneuvers and baffling his foe. Duryodhana in turn showed the full range of moves described in the ancient martial scriptures. The two men met savagely, their maces colliding with showers of sparks and huge cracks that momentarily deafened the observers. They fought like a pair of maddened tigers, sweat pouring from their faces and blood running down their bodies. Again, separating, they stood for some moments to learn in their maces and regain their breath. Then they flew at one another with great yells. Both had smashed the other armor and now fought only in their loin cloths. Their well-muscled frames gleamed in the late afternoon sun as they swung and lunged and parried. Taking a step backwards as if to avoid Duryodhana's mace, Bhima suddenly hurled his weapon at the Kaurava, keeping hold of its sling. Duryodhana anticipated the blow and it sidestepped it. Catching Bhima with his arms outstretched, he struck him a powerful blow on his side. Bhima was winded but showed no sign, summoning his patience as he pulled back his mace. Duryodhana did not realize that his opponent was disadvantaged. Exercising caution, he did not aim a second stroke at him. Bhima, recovering, narrowed his eyes and rushed forward. He swung his mace and, as expected, Duryodhana leapt upwards in the maneuver known as Avasthana. Bhima suddenly stopped in front of Duryodhana and swung his mace chest high in a rapid arc. As the Kaurava dropped back to the ground, he was struck across the thigh. The blow carried the momentum of Bhima's forward dash as well as the full power of his two arms. Bhima's mace, which could only be lifted by the three strong men, smashed Duryodhana's thighs like a thunderbolt, breaking a pair of huge trees. The ground shook as Duryodhana fell flat, screaming. He lay there writhing in pain. It was obvious that the fight was over. All the Pandava forces roared in joy. Yudhishthira embraced his brothers and Krishna applauded Bhima. The air was again filled with strange omens. Showers of dust and bones fell from the sky, fierce winds gusted, and a terrific noise issued from the bowels of the earth. The sky was filled with the frightful roaring of Rakshasas, Yakshas, and Danavas. Darkness enveloped and the four quarters, and fierce beasts yelled on all sides. Bhima, still seething, approached his fallen foe. O wretch, recall now how you insulted Draupadi and how you committed so many sins against the sinless Yudhishthira. Accept the fruits of your actions. Bhima lifted his left foot and kicked Duryodhana. With his foot placed on the Kaurava's head, he continued, his voice harsh. By the ascetic penance of Draupadi's daughter, you lie here and your army is crushed. Let all those who saw her dragged into the assembly hall witness your defeat. All those who insulted and disregarded the Pandavas are slain. Seeing Bhima standing with his foot on Duryodhana's head, many of the Pandava warriors were shocked and cried out, Shame! Balram, witnessing Bhima's abuse, was filled with rage. Already aghast at the way Bhima had struck the Kaurava down, he called out, Fie on Bhima! How has he struck such a blow in a fair fight? No stroke should ever be aimed beneath the belt. This is the ancient rule, but this wretch has broken it. Such an act cannot go unpunished. Balram raised his plough weapon and ran at Bhima, appearing like Mount Kailasha rushing towards the Himavat. Krishna quickly pursued him and caught hold of him. Encircling his elder brother with his powerful arms, Krishna stopped him before he could reach Bhima. The two Yadu heroes shone beautifully and looked like the sun and moon conjoining in the evening sky. As Balram struggled against his brother's grasp, Krishna said, O hero, you should not act in this way. Bhima has served even our interest. The Pandavas are our friends. Indeed, they are the children of our father's sisters. Duryodhana was their sworn enemy and thus our enemy as well. His death was to be sought by us by any means. Furthermore, it was Bhima's solemn vow that he would break Duryodhana's thighs and slay him. The keeping of vows is always a sacred duty, and Bhima's vows was confirmed by the words of the infallible Rishi Maitreya. For all this, O slayer of Pralamba, I do not see any fault in Bhima. Give up your anger and be peaceful, O foremost of men. Balram laughed dryly. Krishna was always expert in providing arguments, but he was not convinced. Still held by Krishna, he replied, In my view, Bhima has sacrificed religion for the sake of material gain. This can never lead to success and happiness. Surely you are famous for your devotion to righteousness, Krishna answered. But there is no unrighteousness in Bhima. He has carried out his promise and requited the debt he owed his enemy. Know, O powerful brother, that the terrible age of Kali is at hand, marked by fierce acts and the loss of religion. Balram slackened and Krishna released his grip on him. Still angry, he said in a resounding voice, For this dishonest act, Bhima will henceforward be known as a cunning warrior. The righteous Duryodhana, on the other hand, will be known as a fair fighter. The Kaurava king has performed sacrifice and given much charity to the Brahmins, having at last offered his life as a libation into the fire of his foes. He will attain the regions of lasting happiness. With that, Balram strode away from Krishna and mounted his chariot. His charioteer urged on his horses and he sped away like a white cloud speeding through the heavens. Bhima folded his palms and bowed his head as his martial teacher left. He had stood passively as Balram had rushed towards him. Death at his hands would have been glorious. After watching him ride swiftly away, Bhima turned again to Duryodhana, who was almost fainting from the pain. He raised his foot to kick him one more time, but Yudhishthira caught hold of Bhima and said, Desist, O mighty hero. You have wreaked your vengeance and gained your ends either by fair or foul means. Let him be. Do not act sinfully. Duryodhana is a king. He is your kinsman and lord of the Kurus. He is ruined. His brothers are slain. His kingdom is lost. His troops are destroyed. And he is reduced to a pitiable condition. How can you offer him more insult? People are always say that Bhima is righteous. Do not act in a way that is not becoming, dear brother. Restraining Bhima and kneeling by Duryodhana's side, Yudhishthira said to the Kaurava, O brother, you should not grieve. Truly you are suffering now the terrible consequences of your own deeds. This, O king, is the universal law. No one can avoid the results of their acts either in this life or the next. Surely everything has been ordained by the Creator, responding to our own desires. Through your avarice, pride and folly, you have suffered this calamity. Having caused the death of all your brothers, sons, companions and followers, you must now meet death yourself. Millions of heroes have gone to death's abode. You must follow them, O hero. Such is the course of destiny. Yudhishthira felt genuine compassion for Duryodhana, seeing him as a foolish younger brother. Wanting to comfort and console him, he went on. You are not to be pitied, O Kaurava, for you have met an inevitable death in righteous battle. It is we who should be pitied. We will have to drag on a miserable existence devoid of our friends and kinsmen. Alas, how will I see my relatives? Widows overwhelmed with grief. You, O king, are departing from this world and going to the regions of bliss. On the other hand, we will have to remain in this world of pain and suffering. Yudhishthira sighed and tears rolled down his cheek. He stood up and walked away from Duryodhana, who said nothing. Yudhishthira's sentiments were noble, but they only gave the Kaurava more pain. He did not want to be pitied. Screwing up his eyes, he lay gasping. Krishna, who had also disapproved of Bhima's abuse of the fallen Duryodhana, went to Yudhishthira's side and spoke consolingly. Placing his arm around his shoulder, he said, O king, you have won a great victory. Do not grieve. All this has come about, ordained by time. Duryodhana has been consumed by the fire of Bhima's anger. The war is over. Bhima, his anger subsiding, moved away from Duryodhana and stood before Yudhishthira, addressing him with folded hands. O king, the earth is now yours, with all its thorns removed. He who was the root of these hostilities, that wretch and deceitful being, now lies on the bare ground. All those sinful men who supported him and uttered cruel words towards us are slain. The earth filled with riches today approaches you as her lord. Yudhishthira embraced his brother and replied, the war is over now. Duryodhana is overcome, and we have conquered the entire earth through Krishna's instructions. By good luck, you have paid off your debt to your mother and to your anger. By good luck, you are victorious and your enemy is killed. All the Pandava warriors rode and waved their upper garments. Some twanged their bowstrings and others blew their conches, others beat drums and laughed loudly. Jumping about and sporting, they praised Bhima, applauding him for striking down Duryodhana and even for placing his foot on his head. Krishna held up his hand disapprovingly. O kings, it is not right to kill an already slain enemy with such words. This sinful, shameless, and covetous wretch has received the results of his own folly. Now he is no more. He has become like a piece of wood. We should regard him as neither friend nor foe. No further energy or thought should be expended on him. Let us leave this place at once. By good luck, the wicked and cruel-hearted Duryodhana is killed, with all his ministers and counselors. Duryodhana heard Krishna's words from where he lay and hauled himself onto his elbows. Supporting himself with difficulty, he contracted his eyebrows and looked angrily at Krishna. Like a snake spitting out venom, he said, O son of Kamsa's slave, it seems you have no shame. Have you forgotten the sinful way by which I was defeated? How could you? It was on your instigation that Bhima struck his sinful blow. Do you think I did not notice? It has been by your deceitful machinations that so many heroes have been unfairly killed. Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Bhurishrava were all killed thanks to your cunning. Without your wily advice, the Pandavas would have stood no chance in the war. Duryodhana gasped in pain and dropped back to the ground, his face covered in perspiration. As he lay there panting, Krishna replied, You, O son of Gandhari, have been killed with your brothers, sons and kinsmen only because of your own sinful deeds. O fool, it was I who requested you to return the Pandavas' share of their kingdom. But out of sheer avarice you refused. You have committed so many wicked acts against your cousins. When you insulted the sinless Draupadi in the assembly hall, you should have been slain then and there. For that crime you are now killed. O sinful wretch, for the crime of assailing Abhimanyu in an unfair encounter, you are slain. You have never respected your elders and heeded their advice. Thus, do you now lie? You are on the bare earth. Do not rail uselessly. You are suffering nothing but the consequences of your own evil acts. Duryodhana's voice, wrecked with pain, croaked in response. What do I care for your words? Having studied the Vedas, performed sacrifice, given charity, and governed the earth, I am now dying a glorious death. That end, which is always sought by virtuous Kshatriyas, is mine. I have enjoyed pleasures worthy of the gods and attained the highest prosperity. Who is as fortunate as me? With all my brothers I will ascend to heaven, while you Pandavas will remain here, torn by grief and continuing to suffer. As Duryodhana spoke, a shower of fragrant blossoms dropped from the sky. The Gandharvas and Apsaras played musical instruments and sang, while the Siddhas cried out, Praise be to King Duryodhana. The celestials looked with wonder as the scene below. Duryodhana's fall before Krishna was all auspicious. Although the Kaurava remained envious towards Krishna, the mere fact of his contact with that eternal supreme deity conferred upon him the greatest possible blessing. Everyone killed in Krishna's presence doubtlessly reached regions of everlasting happiness. As celestial music filled the sky, a disembodied voice called out that Duryodhana had been unfairly killed, as had Bhishma, Drona, Karna and Bhurishrava. Hearing the invisible voice, the Pandavas felt ashamed. Remorseful for the way the 5 heroes had been slain, they looked at Krishna. Seeing their affliction, Krishna reassured them, speaking in a grave voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds. Do not grieve. O best of men, there was no other way these men could have been slain. For doing you good as well as for lifting the burden of the earth, I applied my illusionary power so that victory would be yours. In a fair fight, it would have been impossible to slay those Athirathas. Even the guardians of the universe would not have been succeeded. Do not feel guilty for the deceitful way they were killed. Such means are acceptable when one faces a powerful enemy, and especially when that enemy is himself deceitful. Ultimately, all the Kauravas were Duryodhana's followers and thus were as sinful as he was. For this reason, they have been defeated, and you, O virtuous men, have been crowned with success. Krishna's heartening words were met with roars of approval from the Pandava warriors. All five brothers who were ever acquiescent to Krishna felt consoled by his arguments. Seeing that the sun had set, Krishna suggested that they return to the camp. Headed by Yudhishthira and Krishna, the Pandavas slowly departed, leaving Duryodhana where he lay. With both thighs shattered, he would not live much longer. Awaiting death, the prince lay back, moaning in pain. Thus ends the 27th chapter of the Mahabharat series. Bhima fights Duryodhana. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.